Carson Wentz signs a massive contract, which was more of an extension for year 5 and beyond. And I think when you look at the numbers and break it down, it doesn't do much for year 4, which is what we're coming up to right now. But it kind of buys him out of his free agent years.
Right.
And I think this is the strategy that does kind of make sense from a re-signing quarterback standpoint. Buy him out of the time that he can be free, so to speak, and get him a couple years earlier. And, maybe eventually the contract looks pretty good as the salary cap goes up.
Yeah, and it's important because you don't lose the year of cheap, right? Because the most valuable thing in football right now is a good quarterback on a rookie contract.
Right.
So you don't want to get rid of that by throwing him a boatload of money that counts this year. You just tack on the money to the years where he's not under contract. So that part makes sense. The other thing that I really like about this deal as a sort of incidental, kick in the pants to a divisional rival is this now puts Dallas in a pretty horrible spot with the Dak Prescott gig, because
big money.
The way like house prices work along the basis of comps, comparable properties near yours that essentially control
what are the houses around the block
right.
looking like?
The Eagles just put up the value of the closest comp to Dak Prescott. Not that Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott are that comparable as quarterbacks, but in terms of young quarterback signing a second contract off his rookie deal, Wentz is now the comp, which means that contract is now the comp. So any hope Dallas had of potentially being able to get a Dak Prescott deal done on the cheap or, slightly less than market value just went out the window with the Wentz deal.
What about Jared Goff's contract situation as well?
Yeah, but that was always going to be high. There's no... there was very little leverage in terms of getting him at a below market rate, I think, at any point in this thing.
Yeah.
Aside from anything else, first round quarterback, first couple of picks. It's different to the Dak Prescott thing, right?
A little bit, but honestly, if you look at Goff, Wentz, and Dak and their performance over the course of the first 3 years, they're all the same ballpark. They're all very similar. I do, and I think so. I think those 3 guys are a really good example of QB evaluation and QB progression, so to speak. Again, I think so many people think that we're playing Madden here, and you draft a quarterback and he's a 72, and then he becomes a 76, and then he becomes a 78, and then he's an 80, and it's like, when we get him in his prime, he'll continue to get better. If you tracked the progress of Goff, Wentz, and Dak, after year 1, Dak was the best.
Yes.
And then Wentz, and then Goff way down here. Year 2, Wentz was the best, and then Goff probably, and then Dak. So Dak went from first to third in year 2.
Right. But that's another reason why Goff's deal was always going to be bigger, because he's heading in the right direction. Dak, he's not heading in the wrong direction. He headed in the wrong direction.
This is what I'm saying. I don't think evaluation is directional. I don't think it's.
I think that absolutely sways how teams are going to react to a guy. If you flipped Dak's career, he would get way more money than he does right now.
What I'm saying is I think that's the wrong way to look at it. If I could finish the previous thought, though, year 3, Goff was the best quarterback out of the 3. So the 3 quarterbacks have all had a year where they were the best quarterback. Mm-hmm. Wentz was probably second last year, and Dak was third. So Dak's had 2 years as probably the third best quarterback using PFF grades and just raw traditional statistics. My point in all of this is there's certain dependency, right? Goff got so much better. McVay came in. System's better. There's some dependency on his output. Wentz has been in an excellent system with a really nice supporting cast, and I think Dak has slowly seen his weapons dwindle a little bit. So my point is I don't think that they've changed dramatically as players. I think the guy that's changed the most is Goff, because he looked clueless as a rookie and then became, and then improved to be pretty good beyond that. But his system went from one of the worst in the NFL to one of the best in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So my point is, in any given year, any of these guys could play as the best quarterback. So I think ultimately they're in the same range as far as that. I don't think any of them are a top 10 quarterback at the moment right now, but they're in that 11 to 20 range. And I think that's going to vary in any given year. And then the guys in the 11 to 20 range can creep into the top 10 in any given year based off of other circumstances.
Yeah, I think of the 3, though, Wentz is the one you'd be confident in being a top 10 quarterback. I'm not sure the other 2 have that in them. consistently.
So I would agree there. And this was, you and I debated it back at the time, and I said Jared Goff, and you said Carson Wentz. I thought it was close between the two, but I thought that the style was important. I always thought that Wentz really, really had those high-end seasons in him. He can make those special throws. He's had a weird 2 years now because I don't think he was as good as his MVP season would indicate statistically. He had that extremely high touchdown rate. He made some really nice throws, but his 2017 I don't think was great. And then I don't think last year he was as bad as maybe the points or win-loss. He wasn't as bad as the perception was, but he also wasn't as good as his stats either. So it was kind of this weird dynamic with Wentz last year. So I thought he took a bit of a step back last year, but his last 2 seasons have been kind of close.
Well, what was interesting about his MVP caliber season is that he was really good at the stuff that's completely unsustainable. So his numbers and his play on third downs was off the charts. His play on third and long was completely unbelievable. His touchdown rate, like all the stuff that
tight window throws is another one.
All the stuff that is stupidly A, hard to do, but B, almost impossible to replicate, was just off the charts good. So it was completely inevitable he was going to come back down to earth to some degree, because it's impossible to sustain the things that he was good at for that period of time. But it was really impressive to see, because you just don't see players spike in those areas all at the same time, and that can essentially create an MVP candidacy right off the bat. You're incredible on money downs. You're incredible on the hardest plays to make, the most valuable plays to make. It was phenomenal to watch, but the fact that it was unbelievable. There's no way you could sustain that. So this idea that we've got the best quarterback in the league now was always going to the shine was going to come off that to a huge degree.
It's a weird dynamic when we look at it analytically, because when QBs make great plays under pressure, or they're consistently good on third and long and all that stuff, you want to give them credit for that, and they deserve credit for it. Again, you just can't bank on it, the next year, and that's essentially what happened last year with Wentz. He made probably as many good throws, just didn't do it at the same opportune times.
Right, well, so didn't third and 12.
Points. Right. So it was less impressive. The other thing that must be mentioned with Carson Wentz, now he hasn't finished a season. He has, he missed 2 games early last year and then missed the end of the season. Hasn't played in a playoff game. It's been the Nick Foles show every time they get to the playoffs. He didn't finish his last season at North Dakota State. Or he did finish. He played just the championship game, but he missed a bunch of games in the middle. So we're talking about multiple years now of him being injury prone. And so is that an issue going forward?
It's the whole injury thing is endlessly fascinating to me, right? It's Kyler Murray's 5'10", 200, so you've got to be concerned about his durability. Cam Newton is like 6'6", 260, looked like a defensive end, and is constantly broken. Carson Wentz, 6'5", 237, Cam Newton light, reminded me a lot of Cam Newton coming out, and he's the guy that's been broken constantly. Jared Goff is 6'2", 215, something like that. And it was like, ooh, is that frame, is he too skinny to hold up at the next level?
And
Goff has been fine, right. And Wentz is the guy that's constantly broken. Like this, people need, I think, to get away from the idea that simple size of human being affects the durability of the body pieces involved, because apparently it doesn't. I think also, even if it does, even if a guy in isolation, 6'5", 240 versus 6'2", 210 is more likely to hold up, the differences in the hits those guys expose themselves to are far more important than whatever the percentage difference is in terms of the body parts being able to hold up under those hits.
I've always said playing style is more important than frame.
So a guy like Cam Newton may actually be stronger and more durable in isolation, but the guy exposes himself to running back hits because of that size. So he gets injured more than, Russell Wilson, who tries not to take any hit he doesn't have to.
Yeah, Russell Wilson does a really good job of avoiding hits. I mean, I think if you look at just mobile quarterbacks, Russell Wilson has been fantastic at that. I thought Colin Kaepernick was really good at avoiding hits. And then you have guys like RG3 and Michael Vick who were not good at that. They didn't know how to slide. They didn't know how to take, they took too many hits. Lamar Jackson, I think, is teetering on that from a style standpoint, but he has been durable. handled his whole career at Louisville. He handled his rookie season in Baltimore.
I mean, Roethlisberger is another example of a guy who's huge, strong, built like granite, but takes a lot of hits.
Big Ben
gets hurt.
Cam Newton gets stuck at the top of the pocket, takes a ton of hits. Andrew Luck took a ton of hits early in his career. Obviously, he's battled his shoulder issues. Like you said, Big Ben and Cam are similar, as there's always like a point in the season where they miss a game or two, or they're playing through injury. That's like an annual thing with Big Ben and
right.
Cam, and they are the prototype of big, durable quarterbacks. Joe Flacco is another 6'5", 230, 240 type of guy that has had injury issues over the last couple of years. So I don't think frame and size makes you durable. I also don't know that Carson Wentz having an ACL and then having a back injury, like how much is that actually predictive of what's going to happen in 2019, 20, and 21? I don't know if there's massive predictability.
The ACL wasn't a Jimmy Garoppolo ACL where you just put your knee in the ground and it buckled. His ACL was launching himself between two scything defenders trying to take him out at the goal line. So
it was weird.
That was definitely a product of taking a hit. You can say you didn't need to. I mean, maybe you did, launching your way, Elway style towards the end zone.
Yeah.
But that was one that was like a product of taking a hit, right? That some quarterbacks wouldn't have taken. So I think that's different to like the Jimmy Garoppolo one. You can say, okay, why were you cutting upfield when you didn't have to? But that was no contact. The contact came after his knee. It already fell apart. Like, that was a case of if there had been no defenders there and he just cut, his ACL was gone.
Garoppolo should have just ran out of bounds.
Right, but the point is that wasn't a hit thing. The hit didn't break the knee. The knee broke, then he took a hit. That's different to Wentz, who dove into the end zone. Two guys tried to take his knee out, and the knee went. Like, there's a difference, I think, between when a body breaks in and of itself and when you actually expose it to a hit, which breaks the body.
All right, two things on this Wentz deal right now. We had a whole discussion a few weeks ago about where's the middle class as far as quarterbacks go, and what do you pay these guys? I viewed Wentz as kind of a borderline top 10 quarterback that probably deserves this money. They did it a little bit earlier. You're buying him out of his free agent years, so I like it as an overall deal. I don't know that I'm not going to list the top 10 quarterbacks, but I think in any given ranking you could put 9 or 10 guys ahead of him. I think Wentz, much like Deshaun Watson, hey, Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson, I might take a similar angle here with Carson Wentz. We'll build around Deshaun, when you give me that opportunity. But those guys are kind of on the, in that next tier, quarterbacks 11 through 15. They're young, have shown something already, and they're ready to, be re-upped. And I think they're okay. I'm more likely, as much as I'm saying, hey, look, Dak, Wentz, and Goff have had times in their career where they look similar. I feel much better about re-upping Wentz than I would Dak at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The other thing is, as much as people are going to look at the number and say, wow, $32 million a year, it's crazy, it's huge money, it's not $32 million a year now.
Right.
It's $32 million a year. In a few years' time, when the salary cap goes up year by year by year, there's another CBA on the horizon, which will
go up
probably jump it up a huge amount. Suddenly, that $32 million a year doesn't look bad at all. In fact, it looks like a modest quarterback deal. So that part, I think, is really good as well.